On the night of March 1st, 2026, something flew out of a U.S. base in the region and headed east toward an Iranian radar installation near Isfahan. Deltawing, pusher propeller at the rear, warhead in the nose, flying low and slow at around 185 kilometers per hour, slower than a commercial turboprop. It looked exactly like an Iranian Shahed 136 drone. It was not. It was American. Built in a classified program that had been running for 18 months, specifically for this moment. The Pentagon called it Lucas, Low-Cost Uncrewed Combat Attack System. The engineers who built it had a different name for it, one that will never appear in any acquisition document. They called it the Turnabout. What happened over the next 72 hours is one of the most operationally poetic chapters in the history of modern warfare. The United States took Iran's signature weapon, reverse-engineered it down to the airframe geometry, priced it at $35,000 per unit, and flew it back into Iran at the exact moment Iran least expected to see it coming. Here is how that happened, and why it changes almost everything about how the next 20 years of drone warfare will be fought. The Shahed 136 entered the world's consciousness slowly, then all at once. Iran had been supplying these drones to Russia since late 2022. The images from Ukraine made the airframe one of the most recognized weapons of the decade. That distinctive chattering engine note over Kyiv at 3 a.m., the Delta silhouette caught in a streetlight, the impact that follows. By 2024, Iran had delivered an estimated 3,000 Shaheds to Russia. By early 2026, Russia had launched more than 5,000 of them at Ukrainian targets. On every conventional metric, the Shahed 136 is not impressive. It flies at subsonic speed. Its navigation system is relatively simple. Its 40-kilogram warhead is modest. Compared to a Tomahawk, which costs $3.6 million, flies at near supersonic speed, and can thread a window from 1,500 kilometers away, the Shahed looks like a toy. But here is what a Tomahawk cannot do. Cost $20,000. That gap between what a weapon costs to build and what it costs to stop is the entire lesson of the Shahed program. A Patriot PAC-3 interceptor costs $4 million. Fire one at every $20,000 Shahed, and you are running a business with a 200-to-1 cost ratio against yourself. Do that 500 times in 48 hours, which is exactly what Iran forced the coalition to do in the opening days of Epic Fury, and you have just burned through a number that takes years to replace off a production line that runs at peacetime speed. Iran did not build a weapon. Iran built a cash register, and for 2 years it rang every time an adversary's missile left its rail. The Pentagon had been watching this math since Ukraine, and someone in the acquisition chain made the obvious call. If the weapon is cheap enough to be decisive through volume, build your own version. Reverse engineer the airframe from captured units. The US and Ukraine had recovered dozens of them. Improve the navigation. Keep the unit cost under $40,000. And the next time you need something that can fly into a contested environment at low altitude, navigate terrain autonomously, and strike a fixed target without risking a pilot, you have exactly that, at a price that scales. Think of it like this. A pharmaceutical company spends $1 billion developing a drug. A competitor studies the molecule, resynthesizes it, and brings a generic to market. The molecule does the same thing. It just costs 90% less. And the original manufacturer, in a war, cannot patent their airframe geometry. Lucas is the generic. Iran developed the molecule. The program ran for 18 months. Teardown analysis of captured Shahed airframes, improved GPS and inertial navigation, better than the Iranian original, which sometimes wandered off course in GPS-degraded environments. Propulsion system sourced domestically, unit cost locked at approximately $35,000. $5,000 more than the weapon it was modeled on, with meaningfully better accuracy. By February 2026, Lucas was ready. It had been waiting for exactly the kind of target set that Operation Epic Fury would generate. Lucas entered combat on March 1st, 2026. CENTCOM confirmed the deployment the following day, with Defense Scoop citing a statement that Lucas assets remain ready for future strikes. Open-source tracking and subsequent reporting confirmed strikes against Iranian radar installations, communications nodes, and air defense support infrastructure in the opening phase of Epic Fury. The operational logic was elegant to the point of being cruel. Iran's air defense network had been trained in part around the Shahed threat profile: low altitude, slow speed, small radar cross-section, difficult to intercept in volume. Iranian radar operators knew what a Shahed looked like on screen. They had been watching their own drones fly missions from Iranian bases for years. Lucas shares that threat profile almost exactly. Same altitude band, same speed envelope, same radar cross-section geometry. Iranian air defense operators who scrambled to their consoles on the night of March 1st were looking at a classification problem that their training had not prepared them for. A Shahed signature contact, flying from an unexpected origin point, at a moment when their integrated air defense network was already being saturated by EA-18G electronic jamming and overwhelmed by the sheer number of simultaneous threats across the entire country. The first wave of Lucas strikes went in with minimal effective interception. By the time the Iranian Air Defense Operations Center resolved what it was actually looking at, the radar installation east of Isfahan was no longer transmitting. There is an operational story here, and there is a strategic story. The operational story is about what flew and what it hit. The strategic story is about what the Lucas program means for every conflict after this one. For 20 years, the United States invested in precision, long-range, expensive, sophisticated weapons delivered at extreme cost per strike. The assumption embedded in that investment was that precision justifies price, that a Tomahawk at $3.6 million is worth it because it goes exactly where you aim it, and nothing cheaper can do what it does. The Shahed tested that assumption and found its limit. Not by being more precise. The Shahed is far less precise than a Tomahawk, but by being cheap enough to fire at a rate that precision weapons cannot match, against a target set that doesn't require precision to destroy. A radar installation hit by a $35,000 drone is just as dark as one hit by a $3.6 million cruise missile. The radar doesn't know the difference. Lucas is not a replacement for precision strike. The B-2 sorties against hardened underground facilities at Fordow still required weapons that weigh more than a school bus. Multi-ton penetrating munitions that no drone the size of a kitchen table can carry. For that mission, nothing else works. But for the target set that defines the opening week of any contested air campaign, radar nodes, communications towers, air defense support infrastructure, fuel storage, a $35,000 drone that Iran's own radar cannot easily distinguish from its own weapon is right now the most cost-effective strike asset in the American inventory. There is a version of this story that focuses on hardware, airframes and unit costs and radar cross-sections. There is another version that is harder to shake. Somewhere in an American defense facility, a program officer spent 18 months working from the broken pieces of captured Shahed airframes, drones that had been shot down over Ukraine, recovered from crash sites, shipped back for analysis. That person, whoever they are, spent a year and a half reverse engineering a weapon that had been used to kill civilians in Kyiv and Odessa and Mykolaiv, looking at how it was built, understanding why it worked, and making a decision. Take it apart, understand it completely, and build the version that goes the other direction. On March 1st, 2026, the version that goes the other direction flew over Iran for the first time. Iran has fired more than 5,000 Shahed variants in combat over the past 3 years. It supplied the weapon to Russia, who used it against Ukraine. It used the weapon directly against Israel, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and now US forces in the Gulf. The doctrine, the production scale, the logistics infrastructure, all of it was built to make this weapon decisive in attritional warfare against technologically superior adversaries. That doctrine has now been adopted in mirror image by the United States. The Shahed 136 has been reverse engineered by Ukraine, studied by China, adapted by Iran's proxy networks, and now cloned by the country it was designed to bleed. There is no version of the next decade of warfare in which cheap swarming drones are not a central capability. The only question is who builds them faster and who learns from the airspace over Iran in the spring of 2026. Iran fired more than 1,000 Shaheds in the first week of epic fury. America fired Lucas back. On the night of March 1st, one of those clones found a radar installation that had been tracking American aircraft for 4 days. Then it kept going.